Welcome to the 2022 Horizons Economic Forecast. I'm AJ Gordon, Vice President and Senior Relationship Manager at Banner Bank, and this year's Board Chair for the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce. 2021 was another unprecedented year for our world, country, and region. It has never been more important for you to have access to the information you need to move your business forward. At the Chamber, it is our commitment to provide our members with the most up-to-date economic information and resources available. Today, we will hear from leaders from both the private and public sector. The insight and information they have will help shape our success for years to come. Our vision is to make the South Sound the most equitable and inclusive place to do business in Washington State. I would like to take a moment to recognize the sponsors who have made today's event possible. Our title sponsor, Port of Tacoma. Speaker sponsor, Boeing. PCEI report, Tacoma Public Utilities. And supporting sponsors include Columbia Bank, Key Bank, Multicare, Tote Maritime. Corporate sponsors include Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, All City Fence Co., Madcap Marketing, Pierce County, Sound Credit Union, Tech Master Computer Services, Verizon, and Waste Connections. Our studio and decor sponsor is Tin Can Alley, PJ Hummel. Media sponsors are Premier Media, Showcase Media. And our event sponsors are Bellarmine Prep, Greater Tacoma Convention Center, and Participant First 401k by Extra. Thank you. We truly appreciate your continued support of the Chamber and all the work we do. While here today, remember to visit the booths of all of our sponsors. Learn a little bit more about them and what they have to offer. The swap card format that we're using for this event will allow you to network with each other and even set up meetings at the sponsors' booths. Make sure to take advantage of all that's offered. With that said, I am now pleased to introduce our MC and a good friend of mine, Eli Taylor, Chamber Board Chair-elect.
Thank you, AJ. It is my pleasure and privilege to be here with you all today. And now it is my privilege to introduce our esteemed county executive, a man who's always thinking about how he can help make our community a better and more prosperous place to live. Bruce Danmeyer, thank you for all you do and for joining us here today.
Hi, I'm Bruce Danmeyer, Pierce County Executive, and I'm excited to join you this morning for the Economic Development Board's Horizon Economic Forecast. I don't know about you, but I always look forward to this event, and I really wish we were in person. It is so energizing and invigorating to talk about growth and opportunity in Pierce County when we're together at a breakfast with 400 of you. But for today, we'll have to continue to do it remotely. So I want to thank you because it has been a tough start to 2022. I'm sure most of you, like I have been living through the ramifications of the Omicron variant and how disruptive that has been to every aspect of our lives, from our law enforcement to our hospitals, to our schools, to business in general. It has hit every organization and every business hard, with 20+% people out with Omicron. So, but now we're seeing that start to lessen, and that is a great opportunity. But before I talk about 2022, I want to go back and look at 2021 for a second, because I think that was all about resilience and reinvention. I would tell you I was proud of the way that Pierce County used federal money to help our struggling businesses in a whole host of ways. I was proud of the fact that we saw our businesses go through reinvention after reinvention, adapting to what they could and couldn't do and finding a way to move forward. And I will tell you, I was excited to see new businesses relocate and build in Pierce County. 2021, frankly, was a very strong economic year for Pierce County, because we had land, we had opportunity for people to build, and we had workforce for people to hire. So that was all good. It was also, though, as you well know, the source of the great supply chain disruption and the great resignation. We have seen turmoil in our workforce nationwide like we've never seen before, and that has brought its own set of challenges. But I am bullish as I look forward to 2022. I would say it's going to be the year of recovery and reconnection, and I'm looking forward to both. We're such a strong, trade-dependent, globally connected region that is going to continue to provide strong fundamentals for us as we move forward. We're going to continue to see record investment in Pierce County, and with that are going to come thousands of new jobs, particularly in the manufacturing and logistics arenas. I think you're going to continue to see kind of innovation in our workforce development as we bring more and try to invest in better and stronger job opportunities in Pierce County. And I know we're going to continue to see kind of opportunities for remote work, that continues to be a benefit for Pierce County as we leverage technology in ways that are helpful for us. Now, the one caveat I would have with 2022 is I am watching what's happening in China, and particularly as the Omicron variant starts to hit them. We know one of the things that they have a huge impact on our world's economy. So that could be a disruptive element as we begin 2022. Some of you know my family's been in the printing business in Pierce County since 1934. So we've seen a lot of turmoil. And my dad always said, it's not how you enter a depression or a recession that matters. It's making the right decisions so you can emerge stronger than ever. And I am convinced that many of us in Pierce County and our community as a whole is well positioned to emerge from the COVID-induced challenges stronger than when we went in. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in person in 2023.
It is my pleasure to welcome our title sponsor, Port of Tacoma. The port is a major player of our economy and has been an important part of our community and history for more than a century. With firsthand knowledge of the impact the port has on our economy, please welcome Port of Tacoma Commissioner Deanna Keller.
Good morning and Happy New Year. My name is Deanna Keller, and I have the privilege of serving as this year's Port of Tacoma Commission Vice President. As one of the leading economic engines of Pierce County, the Port is honored to once again serve as the title sponsor of Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber Horizons Economic Forecast event. On behalf of the entire Port of Tacoma Commission, I want to welcome you all here today. Industrial leases and marine cargo flowing across our docks support an estimated 42,000 jobs in our region while generating more than $2.8 billion in labor income. These jobs fill an important role in the wage spectrum of our community. While the vibrant computer technology and biotech sectors are an important part of the Western Washington economy, we know that not every student who graduates from Lincoln High School in Tacoma or Franklin Pierce High School in Parkland will go off to a university to earn a degree in computer science. Attending a university is not the path for everyone, and it doesn't have to be. There is great opportunity for careers in the maritime field that don't require a degree. Workers for skilled trade jobs are in high demand now more than ever, and the reality is that trade jobs provide an excellent career opportunity for those looking for a stable, high-demand, high-paying job. Jobs on Tacoma's working waterfront are family wage jobs that can eventually earn up to 6 figures, and you don't need to have a 4-year degree to be successful. Skilled trade opportunities at the Port of Tacoma include jobs like electricians, plumbers, mechanics, crane operators, freight coordination, building and facilities maintenance, and much more. And as the port and the entire maritime industry looks to recruit the next generation of workers, we also want to ensure that it includes more people of color and women. Recently, the Seattle Times Sunday magazine included a feature highlighting women working in the maritime industry, which we are proud to say featured one of our port employees, Thais Howard. Be sure to check this feature online. It's truly inspirational and shines a spotlight on a diverse group of women working in maritime jobs ranging from boat captains to engineers to welders. In addition to the jobs the port directly and indirectly generates, it also is important to know that the economic activity at the port generates over $100 million in state tax revenue every year, supporting everything from K through 12 education to transportation investments to social services. Last year, the Port of Tacoma adopted a new strategic plan that will guide our priorities through 2026. The plan includes foundational goals in 5 key priority areas, along with strategies to support us in achieving these goals. We are excited to get to work on implementing this plan, and indeed, work has already begun on several initiatives and projects such as workforce development. As we work to reach our goals, we recognize that, ultimately, the key to our plan's success is through collaborative partnerships with all of you, our business, public agency, and community stakeholders. We are grateful for our partnerships and proud to be part of the Pierce County community. The 5 key priority areas in our plan focus on economic vitality, environmental leadership, organizational success, transportation advocacy, and enhanced community connections. And given today's focus on forecasting the region's economic fortunes in the years to come, I'd like to share a port highlight in the area of economic vitality. A major focus of our strategic plan is supporting maritime trade, our tenants, and customers. A substantial portion of the port's operating revenue and resulting economic benefits come from maritime trade activities, and we are excited to see a resurgence of shipbuilding and ongoing success of the ship repair business in the tide flats. Last year, the port welcomed boat builders Silverback Marine and Safe Boats to our port family of tenants, and we are thrilled to see the ongoing success of our ship repair tenant, Motive Marine. Let's take a moment to watch this short video to tell you more about this thriving sector.
The Tacoma Tide Flats has a rich history of shipbuilding. At the end of a 180-acre arm of land between the Blair and Hylebos waterways sits the port's early business center, the location where Todd Shipyard set up shop to build ships during World Wars I and II. This area and its 30,000 employees buzzed with activity throughout World War II, but ceased operations soon after the war ended. In 1959, the Port of Tacoma bought the Todd Shipyard's land and buildings, and in the decades since, it has been home to a variety of businesses. Today, we are excited to see this area start to hum again as the home to Silverback Marine, Safe Boats, and Motive Power Marine.
The biggest attractor for us at the Port of the Tacoma was actually the people. Very manufacturing friendly. They wanted to help, they wanted to stimulate small businesses.
Motive Power Marine has been in the port since 2016. We came over here, saw this site, and it was just absolutely perfect with the ramp and the way that we haul out vessels, which is airbags.
Because we build a boat from bare aluminum sheet all the way up to a completed boat, relies on a lot of suppliers, subcontractors, a lot of partners to help us build the boats, because ultimately it's really difficult to try to be all things and to have everything under one roof.
I want to see us working together, not against each other, because everybody's good at some certain segment of the market, and we can share each other's resources, swap ideas, and that's been very successful for us.
As we're looking toward Tacoma as a headquarters for our large craft production, the support that we're getting to create kind of a regional funnel for people and supplies and materials, and everybody's willingness to coordinate and cooperate on those efforts, I think really sets the region apart, and that will make all the difference for us. The Tacoma facility for Safe Boats was originally set up in about 2013. In total, we built 12 Mark VI patrol boats for the Navy in that facility. Recently, the U.S. Navy awarded the company a contract for now 8 additional Mark VI patrol boats. We will reopen the facility and start hiring just about mid-year this year. And then the first boat will go into production in that Tacoma facility in about August.
There's many skill sets, everything from upholstery to painting to welding, and there's something for everybody in building a boat.
Hiring enough people to fill all the positions that we have is going to be one of the biggest challenges that all of us face over the next few years.
On our end, we'll take some of the individuals that maybe don't have the experience, but they have the desire, and we'll bring them up from the time that they come in here, and we'll get them welder certified and so on and so forth to make sure that we do have the labor pool that we need. That's always been Motive. We want somebody with the right attitude, with the right drive. You can teach anything, but you can't teach the drive.
Boat building is a very rewarding career. I see a lot of opportunity for kids that are growing up, graduating from school. It's an industry where you get to see the fruit of your labors. Tacoma is also strategic for us, for our employees, many of who are on the peninsula. We can get some employees from Seattle as well, and our vendors. It's just a perfect manufacturing hub, and it's just got that maritime vibe to it. There's nowhere else on the West Coast I would want to be.
Support for the marine cargo industry, of course, remains another key strategy when it comes to our goal of promoting economic vitality. The Port of Tacoma does this through its partnership with the Port of Seattle and the Northwest Seaport Alliance. The alliance manages the marine cargo business in both the Tacoma and Seattle harbors. As you have no doubt noticed, either in the news or through your own shopping experiences, we continue to be faced with global supply chain issues. It has been quite the perfect storm, a combination of manufacturing slowdowns during the pandemic coupled with unexpectedly high consumer demand, unprecedented volumes of imported cargo moving from Asia to the U.S. to try to meet this demand, and all further complicated by a lack of trains and truck chassis, full warehouses, and a nationwide truck driver shortage. The result, a backlog throughout the supply chain that has affected all of us in our everyday lives. The Port of Tacoma and the Northwest Seaport Alliance have been working together to tackle this problem. Earlier this month, Terminal 5, located in Seattle, was open to handle additional vessels. The ports of Tacoma and Seattle, alongside our private partners, have invested $500 million in modernizing this terminal over the last 4 years. No other West Coast port is bringing a new terminal to the market at this time. In both Tacoma and Seattle, we have created as many near-dock container yards as possible to provide additional surge capacity. In coordination with our supply chain partners, we are working to clear the backlog of containers waiting to be shipped out by trains and trucks. Now, when I say coordination, you should understand that our alliance operations and commercial teams are in daily conversations with the shipping lines, the major rail carriers, trucking companies, and the beneficial cargo owners who own the product in those containers like Home Depot, Target, etc. We have also frequently dialogued coordination with Customs and Border Protection Control to address individual cases where containers are awaiting inspection to help keep the flow moving. Throughout the year, all parts of the supply chain have been working together to reduce the impacts of the logistics challenges on businesses and consumers. The good news is that we are finally beginning to see a reduction in the backlog and the Port Alliance, and everyone in the supply chain is continuing to adapt and respond and manage these issues. We are confident that operations are improving for trade, both imports and exports, and will continue to improve in the coming months. With that said, we still have a long way to go, and things may not return to normal until later this year, barring any other major disruption. Of course, the lesson from the last 2 years is that disruptions can occur at any time, and predicting the future can be difficult. This is why today's event is so important. I know we were all looking forward to listening to the other speakers today and learning about what the future may have in store for us in the regional economy. I encourage you to stay connected with your port, follow us on social media, read the news and articles on our website, subscribe to our e-newsletter, and hopefully join us on one of our in-person port tours as soon as it is safe to do so again. Thank you so much, and thanks again to the Chamber for the opportunity to serve as a sponsor of this year's event.
Thank you, Commissioner Keller, for keeping the Port of Tacoma working hard as a thriving part of our economy. It is now my pleasure to introduce a woman who has had years of experience in both the private and public sectors, who, among other things, has served as mayor of Tacoma, the president of the Seattle Chamber, and who is now our groundbreaking representative for Washington's 10th Congressional District, Marilyn Strickland. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you to the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to be part of your annual Horizons Economic Forecast. 2021 was a year of challenges, but there were also some bright spots as well. In the South Sound, we know that our economy has been growing, but also could do better. We know that housing has been scarce because so many people are discovering why it's great to live in the South Puget Sound. As I think about 2022, I want to make sure that we are being thoughtful and optimistic and building upon some of the great things that happened in 2021. Yes, businesses are still finding many challenges because the pandemic lasted for 2 years and it's still happening right now, but things tend to be going in a pattern that indicates that things are going to flatten out and we will resume our regular activities. With that said, however, I am so proud that I was able to be part of the American Rescue Plan, where we invested over $300 million in our local communities here in the South Puget Sound. And our plan was simple. We want to get vaccines in arms. We want to get cash in the hands of families and small businesses, put people back to work. And now we're going to work on the landmark bipartisan infrastructure package, which is now law. But here's the thing, we have to implement it. And there's some factors that have to be considered as we think about this. We must make sure that we have the workforce to actually do the work and make these big projects come to life. We're investing in bridges, in roads, in mass transit, in clean water infrastructure, and broadband access so that everyone has access to high-speed internet service, which, as you know, is crucial to participate in 21st century society. The good news is that 2021 was actually the biggest year in U.S. history of job growth, with more than 6 million jobs created, and unemployment went from 6.2% to 3.9%. But we also want to make sure that the South Sound is able to prosper as well. So as we look at 2022, let's continue the good work that we're doing. As a former mayor, as a former chamber executive, and now a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, I know how important it is for all the sectors to work together. The private sector, the public sector, the employer sector, and just coming together the way that we do in the South Puget Sound to show that we have strength and unity. That's so incredibly important. We also know that Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is our largest employer, represents over $11 billion a year in annual impact. We want to make sure that we are investing in the men and women who serve and have served. We have opportunities through cybersecurity. And we want to make sure that as we look at the economic recovery, that it is in fact inclusive. I'm so incredibly proud that the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce has centered equity as part of their mission. Because if we're going to have a strong economy, if we're going to make sure that we are able to lift up and share prosperity with all people, we have to make sure that we're supporting all of our businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and making sure that we are providing people opportunity regardless of their zip code or their background. So I applaud you again for doing that work. As we look forward to 2022 and we implement the American Bipartisan Infrastructure Package, we also want to make sure that we are reaching out to all parts of the South Puget Sound. There are parts of our region that are still struggling, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard and that we're reaching out to them as well. So I thank you so much for all the work that you're doing every single day. It is my honor to represent us in the U.S. House of Representatives. And here's what I bring to this conversation. We have an ecosystem of employers, and that includes employers of all sizes, large, medium, and small. And part of that includes small businesses who often engage in procurement and contracting through these businesses of all sizes. We are a city and we are a region that has ports, and we know that ports are such a big part of our commercial enterprises because we export and import goods and services, and that has an impact on the supply chain. So through the American Rescue Plan, I'm so proud that we're investing in our ports, we're investing in our roads and bridges, and we're making sure that the entire economic infrastructure is working well for everyone. The physical infrastructure as well as the human infrastructure. That's so incredibly important. So thanks again for the work that you do. I am very proud to represent the South Sound in Congress. Every day when I come to work, I fight for a nation that is more safe, more just, and more secure. And we know that includes economic security and economic prosperity for all people. Thank you so much for being with me on this journey.
Hey, good morning. While I know we'd all prefer to be together in person, it's great to be here with you virtually this morning. I hope your 2022 is off to an excellent start. Boeing is pleased to once again sponsor and participate in the Horizons Economic Forecast. This is such a unique and important event, as it brings together the people who power business and the economy in the South Sound. We at Boeing are happy to be one of those businesses. More Boeing employees live and work right here in Washington State than anywhere else in the world. Nearly 8,000 Boeing employees and 9,000 Boeing retirees live right here in Pierce County. The county is home to our Boeing Frederickson site, where we do important composites manufacturing work and build parts for our commercial airplanes. Boeing also has a host of suppliers and vendors in Pierce County. In 2020, we spent more than $260 million with about 100 Pierce County suppliers and vendors. These numbers are significant, particularly during such challenging times when COVID-19 led to a massive drop in air travel. While we're confident our contributions to the local economy will grow in the year ahead, we also realize it will be a few more years before the aerospace industry fully recovers and returns to pre-pandemic levels. Despite significant challenges, Boeing delivered 340 commercial airplanes last year, more than double the total for 2020. We also more than doubled our gross orders in 2021, which jumped to their highest level since 2018. 2022 will be an even brighter year as we look to the future. We're investing in our people to be sure Boeing remains an outstanding place to build a career. Today, we're hiring. We need thousands of new employees right here in the Puget Sound as our company, our industry, and the economy recover from the pandemic. As you all know, recruitment is challenging for businesses right now. That's also why we invite students from local Boeing-partnered high schools and community and technical colleges to participate in Boeing manufacturing internships. These internships lead to prosperous careers. The Puget Sound has a deep military history and a large military presence today that's reflected in our workforce. We at Boeing are proud of our veteran population. Today, more than 7,000 of our Washington state employees are military veterans, many of whom surely spent time stationed at Joint Base Lewis-McChord. Today, many Boeing teammates still stand ready to be called to active duty if necessary. That's why, as of January 1st, Boeing employees on leave for temporary special military duty will be eligible for up to 2 years of differential pay, up from 90 days. Differential pay covers the difference between an employee's military pay and their Boeing pay. Boeing is making this change to provide our teammates and their families with more financial security, as the length and nature of special duty deployments have grown longer over time. I'm deeply proud to work for a company that helps keep the world secure and connected through good times and bad. Thank you for your commitment to help keep our South Sound thriving. Boeing is proud to be a partner in that commitment. And now I'm pleased to introduce this morning's keynote speaker. Let's welcome Curtis Dubé, Senior Economist in the Economic Policy Division at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Curtis tracks the condition of the economy, analyzes the impact of public policy on economic growth, and runs the Chamber's Chief Economists Committee.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm going to walk through where the economy is today and what to expect for the remainder of the year. But before I do that, I think it makes sense to start with where we were in 2021. Gives us a good base to look at our analysis into 2022. So let's remember that 2021 was a recovery year. 2020, it seems like so long ago, but that was the beginning of the pandemic. 2020 was a bad year for the economy. It contracted by 5%. We had a quarter where we lost 33% of the size of the economy in just one quarter. Now, we've come a long way since there. 2021 was a good year for growth. The problem is we're looking at maybe about 6% growth for the year, which is a pretty good number. But it could have been better. We were on track for a much better year before Delta hit in, say, mid-August, brought growth down significantly in the third quarter, and then compiled with issues on the supply chain. We got a really small growth number in the third quarter, and growth was curtailed by both the Delta variant in August, and then at the end of the year, we got Omicron again. So the economy remained the economy remained firmly in the grip of COVID in 2021. Even though it was a pretty good year, it could have been better. The thing that led 2021 was certainly the service sector. We anticipated a big rebound in the economy in the service sector as we got vaccinations and people got out of the house more, and we certainly had that. The thing is, it would have been better had we not had the surge of those two major variants at the tail end of the year. The goods sector side of the economy remains very strong. People are buying lots of things, and we know this both by the economic data, and one of the major problems that I'll get into deeper on the supply chain is driven by that increased demand. So that was 2021. Going into 2022, the economy is in good shape. We're looking for growth to be between 4 and 5% in 2022, and growth to be about 4% in the first quarter of 2022. It was about, we'll probably get data in the next couple of weeks, but probably around 7% growth in the end of the fourth quarter. Now, it might slide a little bit coming into the first quarter because of Omicron and the impacts it has had on the economy. But the economy in general, from a very high level, remains very strong. The key thing, though, when I say this to people is that they push back and say, well, no, the economy is not doing well. And if you look at public opinion polling, you'll see very clearly people do not think the economy is in good shape. They're very sour on it. And it makes sense. And it makes sense because you got to drill down a little bit and think about, even though we have a strong growing economy, low unemployment, rising wages, those things that really usually matter a great deal when people evaluate how the economy is, what people are seeing on the ground are impacted by the three major headwinds that the economy faces right now. The economy would be doing much, much better if it wasn't for these three major problems. Those are inflation, the supply chain issues I alluded to, which are causing shortages at stores across the country, and lastly, issues with the workforce. We have a workforce shortage crisis. So I'm going to hit on all three of those things in the time we have remaining. So it makes sense if you talk to somebody and say, well, the economy is doing really well, right? And they say, no, it's not, because they're seeing these things on an everyday basis. So anyone who's going to the store right now, so anyone who's bought food or gas, that's everyone recently, knows that inflation is a major problem. And it is the major headwind facing the economy right now. And it's taking a big bite out of people's budgets, and it's taking a big bite out of their wages. So wages are growing very strongly. I think it was about 4.7% last month, but inflation was 7%. So their real wages were falling by more than 2% last month. So people are gonna say that things aren't going well when they see their real buying power declining month after month. So inflation is being driven by a lot of different factors. The first one is that we do have huge demand for lots of goods around the economy. That pushes prices up. Those demand is high because people have a lot of money saved up from throughout the pandemic, and at the same time, an issue on the supply chain. There is a shortage of goods around the country. So high demand, low supply, you get higher prices. Workforce, the other major issue. There's a workforce shortage. There's fewer workers out there. That makes it harder to produce goods, which contributes to the issues on the supply chain. But businesses are having to pay their workers more to get them into work and to keep them there. And that means that they are raising wages. And that means that they're passing, in a generally inflationary environment like we have now, they're passing the increased cost of those wages on to consumers as much as they can. So that's I talk about that on the real side. So the workforce shortage, the supply chain, the extra demand from all the pent-up savings. That's the real side driving up inflation. We also have the Federal Reserve has added about $5 trillion of liquidity to the U.S. financial markets, and that's having an impact as well now. Those other issues will work themselves out. People will spend down their savings. The supply chain issues will get resolved over time, and workforce shortages will also hopefully work themselves out over time. Hopefully by the middle of 2022, if not by the end of the year. On the money supply, the liquidity that the Fed has pushed in, that's going to take a little while longer. We don't know how well the Fed is going to do in pulling that liquidity out. I'm not criticizing them. They had to pump all that liquidity in to stave off a financial crisis on the heels of a pandemic. This was always going to be a problem. It's come up faster than the Fed thought that it would, but now they have to fight that, and it could be a bumpy road for the rest of the year and into 2023 as they try to tamp down inflation. So inflation, that's a major issue. I've alluded to it. The supply chain continues to be a major problem. We're having a really hard time getting goods distributed across the country, and this is impacting every sector in the economy. It's impacting the service sector. It's impacting manufacturing. It's impacting everyone because everyone's having a hard time getting those things they need. One of the key things data points that I look at is the number of ships at anchor at the LA and Long Beach port. Usually pre-pandemic, there were 0 ships at port, so there were none waiting to be unloaded. At last check, there were over 85. So there's a lot of ships waiting to be unloaded. And it's not just a problem at the port, it's all the way inland as well. Can't get the ships unloaded at the port, can't get them onto trucks or onto trains because the warehouses are full up the road or up the track. those places are all facing workforce shortages. You can see how all these things work together: inflation, workforce shortage, and supply chain issues. So it's going to take a while to get that issue resolved on the supply chain. It will resolve itself, but it's going to take a while. This time last year, I would say, middle of 2021 will be fine. I'm not going to put a date on it, a firm date on it anymore. But hopefully by middle of the year, we're seeing a much better working, functioning supply chain. Last issue is the workforce shortages. There are now 3.7 million more job openings than there are available workers to fill those jobs. This is unprecedented. At most, we usually have one available worker for every job opening, so a 1-to-1 ratio. Very rarely have we ever had fewer workers than there are open jobs. And this is fueled by a lot of things, but it's mostly pandemic related. People are having a hard time going back to work because they have the virus. They're quarantining because they were close contact. They are caring for someone who has the virus. They're caring for children who are in and out of school and all in daycare. Or they're fearful of getting the virus. Major issues on the workforce. They have savings that have been built up over the last couple of years, so they are spending those down. A lot of issues on the workforce. That is the key issue we need to get resolved right now. You're all business owners. You know that this is a major issue, and hopefully, as the virus wanes, hopefully this is the year that people will be more comfortable going back to work. If the workforce shortage eases, the supply chain will get better. Bring some of that pressure down on the inflation, make the Fed's job easier for the remainder of this year. So with that, let me wrap up by saying that I've given you a lot of issues with the economy, those three major issues, but I am very bullish and optimistic on the future of the U.S. economy. I think we're in for a period of sustained strong growth. Even with these headwinds, we'd be doing much better without them, but once we get past them, barring another unforeseen issue like another pandemic, I think the economy will grow strongly for the foreseeable future. I'm going to stop there. We're going to distribute to you an economic slide deck that has data on all the issues I've touched on today and many more. I'm happy to answer questions you have about things I touched on, things that are on the slide deck, or anything else that I haven't been able to get to anytime. My email addresses will be included with the slide deck. Please feel free to contact me, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for your insightful update, Curtis. To provide further insight on our nation, I invite you to watch our United States Representative of Washington's 6th Congressional District, Derek Kilmer, in his update. With over a decade of experience working in economic development in the Puget Sound region, Representative Kilmer has focused on getting our economy and our Congress back to work. Please join me in watching Representative Kilmer's congressional update.
Hey everybody, Derek Kilmer here. I want to start out by just saying thank you to all of the local employers who've joined today's event. You all do so much to contribute to the vibrancy and vitality of our community. And as someone who calls Pierce County home and who worked in economic development professionally, I'm just very grateful for you. And of course, I want to thank the team at the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce for putting this great event together year after year. I love Tacoma Chamber Summits, and honestly, I love hearing from economists. So for me, I'm not sure there's anything more exciting than a summit of economists. When I was in college, there was a sign up in the econ department that said there are 3 kinds of economists: those that can count and those that can't. But luckily, today you're going to be hearing from some economists who can. And listen, as we think about what's on the horizon, I think it's worth remembering just how far we've come over this last year. Just a year ago, the headlines were really dire. Food banks facing record demand, record housing instability. Far too many of our local employers were still really on their heels. Most of our kids were still in virtual school, and as parents, we were realizing just how bad we were at teaching middle school math. And we'd not yet seen the widespread rollout of vaccines. And that's why early in 2021, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan to help get folks get vaccinated, to help kids get back to school safely, to support our local businesses, and help people just keep a roof over their heads and feed their families and pay their bills. And it provided a huge boost for our economy. Since the American Rescue Plan passed, we've seen over 6 million jobs created. Over 200 million Americans are vaccinated, and unemployment claims are the lowest since 1969. Now, part of that law was focused on helping employers, the Paycheck Protection Program and the EIDL loans and the Shuttered Venue Grant Program. And I want to thank the Chamber for being a huge champion of getting folks connected with those resources, holding webinars and providing expert advice and making sure that business owners had the resources that they need. In fact, I think this may be like my 30th appearance with the Chamber in the last couple of years, which based on the punch card that Tom Pearson gave me should mean that I've earned at least 3 free lattes by now. But beyond the passage of the American Rescue Plan, there was some more progress late last year with the passage of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is a law that's about putting people to work now and laying the foundation for economic growth over the long haul. It's about recognizing that we cannot compete in a 21st century economy with 19th and 20th century infrastructure. So why does it matter? Well, we are blessed to have an outstanding port, an amazing engine of economic opportunity for our region, and this law includes investments to address repair and maintenance backlogs and reduce congestion and make our ports even greener. Like many of you, I've noticed that I can drive through parts of our region and literally feel myself aging. But this new law includes funding to repair and rebuild roads and bridges and deal with some of that congestion. So that's a big deal as we look to compete. We've learned over the course of the last year that internet access is not just about whether you can watch Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, which you should because it's terrific, but it's about whether you can operate your business when your storefront's shut down, or whether our colleges can offer remote learning, or whether we can have telehealth visits with our doctors. And that's why the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill invests in broadband to help connect every American, including about 250,000 Washingtonians, to reliable high-speed internet. So there's a lot more funding for wastewater and stormwater and for fish passage, and all of that is good news. That's not it. On the horizon here in the next few weeks, Congress will have to pass a spending bill, which also includes some huge wins for Tacoma. That includes funding for 2 projects that will provide more affordable housing and job opportunities on the hilltop, helping current community residents and BIPOC-owned businesses. So listen, there's a lot going on, and I'm excited for how these investments can shape our economic future. Before I close, I just want to say thank you again to Tom Pearson. Tom has been a top-notch partner as we've worked on infrastructure and helped to navigate this pandemic, as we've worked on project after project to make this community a great place to live and work. Our community is stronger and more vibrant, more connected, more focused on equity and inclusion and sustainability because of his leadership. Tom has shown that we can do big things when we work together to get stuff done. And that's an ethic that I push in Washington, D.C. every day as we work to make our economy and our government work better for everybody. So thanks again for having me, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for your leadership, Congressional Kilmer. It is now my pleasure to introduce Tom Layson of KBTC, who will facilitate a panel discussion on his show, Northwest Now, with local economic development leaders. Tom Pearson, President and CEO of the Tacoma-Pierce County Chamber of Commerce, Betty Capistani, Director of Economic Development for Pierce County, Jeff Robinson, Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Tacoma, and Bruce Kendall, President and CEO of the Pierce County Economic Development Board. All 4 of these panelists have years of economic development experience, work daily on issues that affect our businesses and our communities, and have insights into the workings of Pierce County.
Every January, Northwest Now does a program about the economy in Pierce County, and this year was no exception. We started with a look at Bates Technical College's new $44 million Center for Allied Health Education. I hope you will take the time to tour the 64,000 square foot building. We also did our discussion panel with the economic development leaders at the Chamber, the City of Tacoma, Pierce County, and the Economic Development Board. I want to start with a little bit of an icebreaker here, and Tom, we'll start with you from your perspective. What are some of the good things, some of the wins that we've seen here in Tacoma-Pierce County?
Well, really quickly, one of the big pieces is 167 Gateway Project, 509, 167, getting that kicked off. It's $2 billion, and so we're going to be under contract. We're under contract in construction. Second piece would be is this focus on small business and really focus on the BIPOC side of the small business. And the third thing I would add in is the certainty for businesses. And when I talk about those tide flats in terms of the certainty and regulations down there, and we see at least a $500 million project that's going to be kicking off. That's going to be great for climate change, great for clean energy and our environment.
And that was a long process of regulation and what the framework was going to be for the types of industries and how that tide flat area, which is industrial use, can be used.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a big win. And we'll see more from that.
So big wins in our book were during the pandemic. I think everyone realized the impact of small business and how that's really the major employer for all of our counties. And so the programs that were established to help those through the CARES Act and American Rescue Plan, but also the resilience they're having. I mean, there's some really cool entrepreneurial stories that are spinning out of Pierce County companies and doing things in real innovative ways. I also think that kind of tapping on Tom's, the creative partnerships, because we learn to work across silos, but also with non-traditional partners. So bringing in people like the Korean Women's Association, Mi Centro, Black Collective, Urban League, Asia Pacific Cultural Center to reach their business network, which they normally were more human service focused. So bringing them into that business arena. We're still seeing all across the county development and a lot of people investing in Pierce County, and that investment ties to what the consumers want, which is a lot of the products to the door. So we have a lot of industrial
logistics,
almost 4 million square feet just in the Frederickson area alone currently in the permit and construction system.
Yeah, well, I would just add to what Betty just said that from a small business perspective, we did things we'd never done before with grant programs using federal dollars. So good use of federal dollars that came through the state, in addition to what the county was doing, the city was doing, the chamber were doing. We, for the first time ever, were getting cash directly from government into the pockets of small business and very small businesses in many cases. And that's the best kind of government program you can imagine from a business perspective. Yes, they had to have an application that was strong, but the money went straight to them, and the overhead to us was zero. Yeah. I mean, we didn't take a cut out of that. Big wins. So I'll say this: in the technology space, we've been talking for years about what's going to happen as we build a technology base in this community. And last year, I think we could safely say we arrived at a new level. We're not at a hyper level yet, but we're at a very important level where we have companies like Namatod, which has been spun out of University of Washington Tacoma School of Engineering and Technology. You've got the Benaroya data center in Puyallup, which is a node on the World Wide Web, and demand for its use, particularly as e-commerce becomes larger, is bigger than ever, and they're right here invested in this community. And then Infoblocked, which came in a couple years ago and bought a local company, they continue to grow as fast here as they are in their home state of California. So that's all happening in Tacoma-Pierce County on the tech side, which are big wins for us.
There are many, many good things, and I'll focus on the real estate investment side of the house. First of all, the Convention Center Hotel, the new Marriott downtown, that's a $172 million project in the city core. Really will help attract many more conventions, which will help small businesses throughout the downtown. Adaptive reuse was a really big theme, and that was looking at existing buildings and finding new uses for them. I'll give you many examples. Our pride and joy, of course, is the sale and the reconstruction of Old City Hall, the renovation of it, which is our iconic landmark in the downtown. There are other things. The Washington Building, formerly an office building, will now be mixed use, primarily multifamily residential. That will open this spring. In addition, there are several buildings in the downtown along the 11th to 12th side of Pacific Avenue. These are people coming in from Spokane, and they're renovating the buildings. These aren't always people that are local. They're coming from far and wide. Another example is MJR from Kirkland, Washington, acquired the Tacoma Financial Center. They're going to invest in that and make that even more competitive in the office space. So I do want to mention that office space is not dead. We're really excited with the renovations in 909A, the new Tote headquarters, GSA coming into the Columbia Bank building, and to support industrial. So excited that the Burlington Northern Santa Fe site has been acquired by Bridge. They will now construct 2.3 million square feet of new logistics space.
On South Tacoma Way there.
Yes, absolutely a wonderful win.
I'm just going to throw this out, a piece of meat on the table. We know each other well enough. Feel free to speak. I would have lost a $100 bet a year ago about the demise of Boeing and a global pandemic tanking the economy. I would have. What What's your explanation for how resilient we were? I know we all think Pierce County's great, but it has to be something more than that. Is it Fed stimulus? Is there too much money sloshing around? How did that happen?
Well, I think one of the answers is that if you look at Tacoma-Pierce County, it is, and Bruce can, I mean, he lives in this world in terms of where are people looking to not only live, locate, invest. Tacoma-Pierce County is the place. I mean, we have this unique mix of being big enough, but being small enough, and being close to logistics, where, I mean, you know, we talk about, you know, development, housing, whatever else. We have cranes. We actually have this new bird in downtown. It's called a crane, and it's been taking over in the downtown and throughout our region. And so I think it's the right mix. Is people want to be in Tacoma, want to be in Pierce County, and that's part of the answer.
You ought to work for the Chamber of Commerce.
I would agree with Tom. Talking about the multifamily sector, right now in the pipeline, we have 3,100 units that are going to be under construction and completed within 3 years, and that's amazing. So what that does is it brings more people into our community. The population alone in 2019 was about, 213,000 people. We're now at 221. 8,000 people growing in 2 years' time during the pandemic, which is astounding.
So here comes Home Tacoma. Will that be a good thing to get some of that missing middle housing into the mix?
The city is trying to figure a way to enhance that. For some it'll be a win, for some it'll be more challenging. But the idea is how can you use infrastructure much more effectively and provide the services that people need.
Infrastructure, great. Reaction to the passage of the infrastructure bill. My eye went right to digital and high-speed cable and net connectivity. Did anybody else zoom in on that and go like I did? Oh, finally.
Well, yes, and yes, and yes. So it's that, and it's roads, and it's transit, and it's a whole lot of other stuff. That is huge. And as that gets spent, as that spend happens on a state-by-state basis, we will see billions of dollars of investment in the Puget Sound area, which includes Pierce County. And so that is a different kind of federal stimulus. It's more of a traditional kind of federal stimulus, an infrastructure bill, as opposed to the pandemic direct payments to businesses, small businesses. So this is going to impact everybody in a positive way. It's also a lot of jobs to build that infrastructure out. So it's very exciting as that comes rolling out. So kudos to Congress. We don't often say kudos to Congress. They did a good job on that one.
Betty?
And maybe coupled with that, Pierce County has actually invested $15 million of the American Rescue Plan to be a matching, so hopefully it gets providers in to do the gap, because you know the areas that aren't served, there's a reason they're not served, because it costs too much.
Yeah.
And so we just want to make sure, especially we found during the pandemic, those that needed it most, whether they need it for school, whether they need it for their jobs, whether they need it for medical appointment, they didn't have that connectivity. And so we're working really hard to figure out the areas in Pierce County that need that infrastructure and what we can do to put all those pieces together to make it happen.
Many thanks to our guests for appearing on this year's program. Northwest Now airs Friday nights at 7:30, and you can see the full program and all the other shows we do under the Northwest Now tab at kbtc.org.
Thank you, local economic development leaders. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Dale Johnson of Sound Resource Economics and Tom Layson of KBTC, who will now present the Pierce County Economic Index Report. The Pierce County Economic Index, sponsored by Tacoma Public Utilities, is presented to the Pierce County community as a measure of economic well-being of our community. It is my great pleasure to introduce two professionals with exceptional expertise in their respective fields, research and communication. Dr. Neil Johnson is the owner and principal of Sound Resource Economics here in Tacoma. His background is in natural resource economics. Dr. Johnson has compiled this work over the course of many months and looks forward to sharing it all with you. Tom Layson is KBTC's managing editor and the producer-host of Northwest Now. Tom comes to the job with more than 30 years of experience, having worked as a television news reporter and anchor. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. Neil Johnson and Mr. Tom Layson to present the Executive Summary 2021 PCEI Report.
Well, KBTC is happy to be part of this event again this year, and boy, what a year it has been. Let's get started with our annual discussion of the Pierce County Economic Index, or PCEI. Neil, the big topic this year, of course, is workforce. It is always an issue in Pierce County, but there are some new wrinkles. So let's start with the Great Resignation. Is it real, and what does the data say about how prevalent and widespread it is?
Well, hi, Tom. That term, the Great Resignation, applies to two phenomena. One is people leaving the workforce. Has that happened? Yes. The size of the labor force fell through 2020 and only partially rebounded in 2021. The county is down at least 9,000 and as many as 26,000 workers, depending on what assumptions are made regarding population growth and labor participation in the absence of a pandemic. The other use of the term is in reference to people quitting one job to look for another job. Has that happened? Again, yes. The national data clearly shows that is happening, and surveys in some other countries indicate this is not isolated to the US.
Does this make the skills gap that we've talked about in the past even more difficult to address? Or is it skilled people? I suppose the skilled folks are job searching as opposed to dropping out. Is there a difference in the skill levels?
You know, that's hard to answer without having some more micro level data on who left the labor force. The very end of our discussion will come sort of circle back around to this issue. If it's low skilled workers dropping out, I don't see this being that much of a problem on the employer side. But if it's skilled workers that have left, and I suspect that's partly the case, then it leaves a bigger gap to fill that skills gap.
So are there any sectors enjoying back to pre-pandemic employment levels, or do all of them still lag? Are there some that are keeping up with the pace? How does that look?
Okay, well we're down about 12,000 jobs compared to 2019. A few sectors were relatively untouched by the pandemic, namely trade and transportation and construction. They dipped a bit in 2020, primarily due to business closures, but are higher now than pre-pandemic. The combined education and health services sector is up a bit, about 700 jobs. In contrast, the leisure and hospitality sector is down 5,000 jobs, and government is off by a little less than 5,000 jobs, about 4,800 jobs. So those two sectors account for the bulk of the 12,000 that we're missing.
I just have to ask this question for myself, and it has to do with the Great Resignation. Every time I hear it, I just have to shake my head though, Neil, because I know what the numbers say about people living paycheck to paycheck, how prepared they are or not for retirement. What is this cohort's plan for making a living? Are there long-term consequences to this? There has to be.
Well, there's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of reasons for people to leave the labor force, either temporarily or permanently. Slight changes at the margin can be enough to tip someone to make that decision. And I'd say we've had more factors that favor that decision than the reverse decision. Examples include a good year for the stock market, the federal stimulus payments, kid attending schools virtually so that a parent is needed at home, the risk of getting COVID at work, and grumpy customers in the service sectors. These factors can individually or collectively be enough to cause someone to quit. This may also be a household decision with one or two or more wage earners, allowing one to leave the workforce. Also, keep in mind the second reason for quitting: to find a better job. That may make it feasible for a double income household to drop down to a single income household. Again, however, there are probably hundreds of reasons for people to exit the labor force, including some reasons that we might file under the bad decision category that will have adverse long-term consequences for those people.
This rolls right into a discussion, of course, about income. Let's talk about that. What are the factors going into the numbers the past couple of years? And I'm asking about the effectiveness of federal income support there. Has it shown up?
Oh, yeah. The federal support, so stimulus payments to households, the payroll protection program for businesses, and federal boost to unemployment compensation have kept per capita income higher than it would have been had there not been a pandemic. Not just higher than otherwise with a pandemic, but higher than if the pandemic never happened. Significantly higher too. There was a lot of federal stimulus. Was it effective? I think it helped a lot of households, and it certainly kept consumer demand up, but I think it was a rather blunt set of policies. It could have been done better, better targeted, and certainly cheaper.
So It seems obvious that some of that support has skewed the data when it comes to the impact on the labor force. To tie it back to our previous conversation, some folks say, listen, the stimulus, it plays no role whatsoever in the participation rate. But my inclination is to believe that it doesn't add up to much on an annual basis. So that's the flip side of that argument. Is it impactful on labor force or not so impactful on labor force? What are your thoughts?
Well, there's been at least one study that's looked at this on the unemployment issue. And they did find that states that didn't go along with the boost of unemployment from the federal government, they found a slight difference there. So at the margin, it makes a difference. You don't want to fall in the trap, however, of thinking about the average worker. The payments make a difference at the margin. That is, they will be sufficient for some people to drop out of the labor force, either temporarily or permanently. Think about the worker that was almost indifferent to working before. One or two key changes to the work, income, or wealth that includes these federal stimulus payments may tip them to leaving the workforce.
The swing into trade, always a big issue here in this discussion. We've been talking about port traffic and competition between regions for years. What is the news when it comes to the ports?
Well, container traffic is up and up about the same 14 to 15% for our ports here as for the Southern California ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. One notable change has been a sharp increase in empty containers being exported. That is, full containers coming in as imports are up, but not full containers going out as exports. For example, up in Vancouver, British Columbia, their entire 8% increase in container traffic that they've seen during 2021 is due to the increase in number of empty containers they handle. But that issue of empty containers versus full containers is more of a national issue than a regional issue. There's not much you, I, or anyone in Pierce County can really do about that.
How much of a problem is supply constraint, though, for businesses in Pierce? Does it register as a factor? Because you can't even sell into demand if you don't have the products to sell.
Well, there's a lot of focus on the supply side, but there's also, a demand side to this. So I'm going to answer by first referencing taxable retail sales. If you had asked me at the start of 2020 to predict total spending for 2020 and 2021 combined, based on the growth rates up through mid-2019, I would have underestimated by about 1 to 2%. That is, actual spending, aggregate spending for those 2 years is higher than what I would have thought pre-pandemic. So the demand has been there, and the spending has been skewed a bit, or actually a fair amount, to 2021. The bottom line is that the demand in 2021 has pushed the supply chain to its limits. Some retailers may have missed out on some sales, and I'm thinking the new dishwasher that I wanted to buy, but for the life of me could not find one. But it does look like households spend what one would have expected, just not in the same sectors as pre-pandemic. On the supply side, there has been a national shortage of labor for the transportation sector, and there has been production disruptions. But high consumer demand should probably bear as much, if not more, of the blame than anything on the supply side for the shortages.
And I would add, boy, maybe here comes inflation. So that's a piece of this as well. But I wanted to hit you. We have a lot of realtors, as you well know, in this audience too. Housing and real estate. Give us some of the headlines about inventory and prices. And I want to ask you too, in the same question, is this sustainable? Are we in a bubble?
Okay, so home values were up 20 to 22% in 2021. Inventory remains very tight. Listings represent about 1/2 month's worth of sales. Zillow forecasts a further 12.4% increase in 2022 for Pierce County. I don't think that price appreciation is sustainable, and I think Zillow's forecast is too high. For two years, mortgage rates are likely to increase. If they go from, say, 3.1% to 3.7%, that adds almost 8% to a monthly mortgage payment. That puts downward pressure on what people can afford. Second, barring more federal stimulus payments, I expect incomes to remain flat for 2022. Combined with Zillow's price forecast the higher mortgage rates, this pushes the affordability index back down to levels last seen in 2008. And low on that affordability index is less affordable. The thing most likely to budge to keep the affordability index closer to what we've been seeing is the price forecast, which I think should be lower. Is it a bubble? The current housing affordability index isn't in bubble territory. Will there be a crash? I wouldn't be surprised by a slight pullback based simply on what people can afford for monthly mortgage payments. But no correction like the bubble burst we saw back between 2008 and 2012, where there truly had been a lot of speculative home buying by people who really shouldn't have qualified for a loan. So no crash.
Neil, that's the end of our 10-minute segment there. Great insights, as always. We thank you for that. For all of us here at KBTC Public Television, I'm Tom Layson. Here's to a better 2022, and hats off to all of you out there working so hard and working overtime to grow Pierce County's economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil and Tom, for the information and all the knowledge that you bring to the table. So we all appreciate it, no matter if we like it or not. Now diving a bit deeper into these topics and taking a hyper-local look to the South Sound, we have a panel of experts here with us in some of the most influential industries in our area. Industries here with us are healthcare, real estate, workforce development, small businesses, and commerce and trade. Wow, what a great looking panelists. I'm so excited for you guys to be here. Let's get started with the first question. Let's start with a discussion on how 2021 treated you in each of your industries. If you could briefly introduce yourself, name, title, place of business, and then briefly describe what 2021 was like for your industry.
Good morning. My name is Therese Pasquire, and I'm the CEO for Sound Family Medicine. We are a physician-owned independent group practice here operating out of 5 clinics in the Puyallup and Bonnie Lake areas. Our 45 providers roughly manage about 65,000 patients on their panels. They also deliver over 600 babies a year. 2021 was actually very difficult for all businesses, but particularly for Sound Family Medicine. Our patients are not coming in to be seen because they're too scared of the virus, but the ones that are coming in are actually at a much higher acuity, and they're much sicker because they're not managing their chronic diseases. They're delaying care. So even though the viruses were raging, their chronic diseases are not getting better because they're delaying this care. We were one of the first practices to roll out the car visits for patients so that they don't have to actually go into the waiting room. And doing this has allowed them to feel okay to be seen, but it's not okay for providers over the long term. I mean, they are seeing patients in their cars, but standing in the rain and the snow to actually treat patients. We also pivoted to telehealth and virtual visits, but adoption hasn't been as high as we would like. Patients still want to actually see their own physicians and doctors so that they can try to treat their chronic diseases. I'm gonna actually pass it on to Dr. Van Giesen so he can actually give you more about his experience in 2021.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Van Giesen. I'm one of the 13 partner physicians at Sound Family Medicine. I wear several hats, but one of my key roles is medical director of quality and population health. In 2021, the pandemic created several hardships for healthcare, 3 of which I'm going to focus on. The first was the Great Resignation. People are jumping ship. They're leaving the area. Historically, voluntary turnover at Sound Family Medicine has hovered around 16%. This year in 2021, we saw over 33% turnover in this voluntary group. We felt the pinch of staffing shortages and understand that this is a very common theme amongst all areas of commerce. On the flip side, hiring staff has been tremendously difficult. Partners are in our community, larger groups are offering salaries that are difficult to compete with. The second is the cost of supplies. We have seen nearly a 4-fold increase in some of our supplies, and we just have not experienced this nor have anticipated these types of expenses. Third is the unique thing to Pierce County. We've seen the expansion of standalone ERs. While good intentioned, these standalone emergency rooms or ERs give the appearance of urgent care, but they come at a greater cost to patients. The South Puget Sound has one of the highest rates of emergency room utilization. Standalone ERs are only magnifying this issue, not reducing it.
I am Deborah Howell. I'm the COO for Workforce Central here in Pierce County. Across all of our regions, there's 12 workforce development councils, and really part of our role is to lean in to help both workers, job seekers, and businesses figure out what they need in their industries, whether it's pipeline development, other types of resources that they need to continue to function during a moment like this. We know that the market is a workers market right now, or a job seekers market. That has changed our view on how we flex and how we lean into what is needed. It looks very different, but we also know that there are workers who still have barriers to employment. And so how do we lean into making sure that we can process and assist folks with resources across all ways? Because the other really big identified, not that it wasn't already there, because it has been there, but this thing called justice and equity and inclusion. And how do we not just talk about it as a single moment for how do we think about it differently? We really had to change our vision about how do we integrate that into our workforce development work everywhere.
Hey, good morning, Tamar Jackson, Senior Director of Community Engagement. Oh man, what did we see in 2020 or 2021? What did we see in 2021? We saw the true disparities that happen in our communities. And I feel that because of this pandemic, it really exposed those disparities. I think as we started to really focus, I know Deborah had mentioned, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had to realize, how do we give access, especially to our future workforce, which is the young adults that are coming out. But we also had to think differently on, it's not all about education anymore. Now there's lived experience. Now there's earned experience. We have to think about these things now, because the board did mention this is an environment that we're sitting where we're looking for workers. But are we looking for the right workers? If we're talking about how we're going to sustainably change what our workforce looks like in Pierce County, especially for generations to come, we have to listen to their voices. And I believe through workforce development and what we've been doing with Workforce Central and our other partners is really be getting out to listen and asking those questions. What are the jobs right now that you guys are interested in? How can we get those voices to the table?
Thank you. Michael, you're up next.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Michael Robinson with Windermere Professional Partners and a member of Tacoma-Pierce County Association Realtors, going on my 29th year with both. The Puget Sound or Pierce County in particular, residential real estate market was intense last year, and I don't think that's a new headline. It was fueled by King County migrants, newly minted work from homers, lots of first-time buyers, and properties of all sizes were in demand. As we moved through, that market imbalance really meant that buyers did not have it easy. And all the while, we reached a record-breaking almost 18,000 homes were sold. As far as I went back 15 years, it's a record. It's true, we started the year with less than 500 homes for sale, and the supply was only able to peak in June at just over 2,500. But those numbers, which are often reported, are just a snapshot of what's available at that given time. And the reality was that nearly 19,000 homes were listed. And that represents 101% of the 5-year average. So really what's going on, I would characterize as the market having a high demand that's overwhelming our normal supply. And it's just a different way of looking at it. But all combined, it made for, as I said, a very imbalanced market. It only took 14 days on average to sell a house in 21. That's down 11 days from 20. Sales were strong across all price points, and the entry-level price points were the hottest, naturally. But we set a record in sales over $1 million. We sold over 590 units over $1 million. That's a 111% increase over 20.
Thank you. Okay, Quincy.
Yeah, I'm Quincy Henry. I am the co-owner and CEO of Campfire Coffee and our nonprofit, which is the Campfire Explorers Club. And 2021 was wild, to speak pretty plainly. I mean, it was phenomenal in the true sense of the word, in that we were faced in our industry with a lot of challenge, but also a lot of opportunity to grow. But being so small and so new, you know, there are challenges that come with being able to take advantage of some of those opportunities. But some of the big things that we saw happen in our industry, you know, your daily cup of coffee is just getting harder to get. It's getting more expensive to get. It wasn't even so much pandemic related. We just had some freak things happen in coffee. Brazil, who's the largest producer of coffee year over year by far, they're the largest producer, exporter of coffee around the world. They saw a flash frost, which wiped out, I think it was something around 10 million pounds of green coffee, which then puts a strain on the entire supply chain, right? And that was kind of the theme of 2021, especially with retail, with supply chain. Can we get the products that we need? And that became a challenge. So, you know, like I said, being new and actually getting started in the pandemic, we were just trying to figure out our processes in 2020. And then that also got kind of flipped again in 2021 with some of those supply chain issues. But like I said, that led to some incredible opportunities to look down the line. You know, as climate change continues to be a thing, scientists are all kind of on the same page in that the coffee that we drink today, that particular strain, which is called Arabica, in 10, 20 years may go away, just because it's not a very hardy plant. And so what that means is there's some opportunity to kind of future-proof our business. So we actually invested in a very small project in Hawaii where we could start to grow some other species of coffee plants. And so that's kind of a long-term goal for us, where we see an opportunity to not only have something that's grown stateside, which that comes with its own set of advantages, but also to be able to kind of control our own supply chain with the type of coffee that we offer to our customers long-term. And then even on the outdoor side of things, you know, what we saw was kind of another one of those phenomenons, right? Where being someone who grew up as a baseball guy, baseball fan and player, I believe baseball was America's pastime. Come to find out, it's actually outdoor recreation. That's something that, you know, kind of combines everybody in this country, is those memories of camping as a kid and then passing that down. There's a lot of research around that show that during the pandemic, people that had to cancel their travel plans actually looked to their own backyard for activities. So for our nonprofit, we saw a ton of opportunity to help get more families into the outdoors safely, and get them exploring the world just right outside of their own window. So that was another big thing where, you know, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, we do see that it's hard to kind of get groups together like we initially planned to do for our nonprofit, to be able to get staffing around that and the right curriculums built around getting people into the nature. But what we are seeing is that more people are interested in it. And it just so happens that not only do we have a vehicle to help people do that with a gear library that we're building, but also the coffee brand itself kind of lends itself to that whole thing, where we're able to kind of lean into that branding, that messaging, that whole aesthetic, and people are able to connect the dots. So it's been a weird mixed bag for us, and where, yeah, you know, we're seeing supply chain issues, we're seeing employment issues, and being able to retain staff just because of the health and safety factor of everything. And, you know, but at the same time, there is a lot of opportunity that I see on the horizon and going long-term, looking forward.
Hi, I'm John Wolf, CEO of the Northwest Seaport Alliance. 2021 was an extremely challenging year for all ports, and the Seaport Alliance no different, primarily due to the significant congestion problems in the global supply chain. We've never seen anything quite like this past year, and certainly it was driven partly by the pandemic, yet there were some other factors that made it a very challenging year. That said, it was also an exciting time for the Northwest Seaport Alliance because we were able to open Terminal 5 in Seattle, phase 1 of that terminal, and that added new capacity to our gateway on the heels of, in the past years, opening a redeveloped Husky terminal in Tacoma.
Thank you, John. I'm Don Estabrook, the Deputy CEO of the Northwest Seaport Alliance, and well said as far as a challenging year. The best analogy to describe the industry impact of 2021 is to picture a funnel and having all this pent-up demand for cargo being dumped into the top of the funnel. Yet all this cargo has to move through a relatively small and somewhat rigid supply chain opening at the bottom. So the problem we're trying to solve, or at least improve upon, is to find ways to further open or expand the opening of this funnel to reduce bottlenecks and ultimately improve the flow of cargo, which is why adding additional capacity, as John just mentioned, is so important. But
this is Tom Belrud, Chief Operations Officer with the Northwest Seaport Alliance, and really not much to add to what Don and John have outlined for you. I think that explains it very well. I might just add that the public has become so aware of all of the logistics challenges in the container side of our business. The Northwest Seaport Alliance, in addition to that, has also experienced a record-setting year for non-containerized freight, or what we call break bulk cargo. So on top of the challenges that we've had in the container side, we also have just extreme volumes going on with non-container freight as well, which has led us to using up space for that business that might otherwise have been available for container space as well. So we're doing a juggling act, trying to keep everybody happy. And right now, that's, as we see, that is quite a challenge for us. But we feel like we're winning, and particularly because of this task force that Don mentioned, we're bringing in a lot of outside experts to also give input on where they feel the most help is needed. And we've been able to direct it in that direction, I think quite successfully with these near dock container yards.
Thanks, Tom. Tong Zhu, Chief Commercial and Strategy Officer for the Seaport Alliance. I think between John, Don, and Tom, they have covered a lot of ground. I would just say this, that obviously in 2021, the world continued to learn how to adapt and how to cope with COVID. And it certainly is true for our industry. Don highlighted a number of initiatives that we have taken on to help release the congestion and to help cope with the result of the impact of COVID. We continue to see a lot of BCOs wanting to take control of their own supply chains, seeking to integrate end-to-end service across multi-section of suppliers and modes. And I think come with that, we will continue to see some opportunities for Pierce County and for our region.
Well, that's great information so far. And thank you all for sharing some insight into what 2021 brought. So now it's time to dust off that crystal ball. And the next topic will be, what do you feel is going to be the most important topic in 2022? And what takeaway can you give our audience that you think will help them prepare accordingly? And we'll go in the same order this time.
All right, what's important for 2022? I keep thinking about my why. Why am I here at Sound Family Medicine, and why did I choose healthcare? What makes me want to get out of bed and do this day in and day out? I feel like for me, 2022 is being centered on the why. I look at this as my foundation, and do I believe in this foundation? I do. Then it's all about getting up every day and making things happen. My why is to help other people and to serve the community that I grew up in. In my youth, medicine was a key component of my family's health and that of my friends too. For me, it's the people. It's that connection and partnering in care. It's being there for patients when they deal with their challenges in life and being able to share in their joys too. For small business and healthcare, I think the supply chain needs to improve. Costs need to normalize and ideally go down. Staffing shortages will need to be improved. Washington law requires training for many of the staffing positions that small practices need. Much of this could be taught on the job. Bringing training in-house may be a way to help mitigate some of the staffing shortages healthcare has seen. Our reimbursement model needs to change. Currently, 8 cents on the dollar is being allocated to primary care. Yet primary care is becoming more and more responsible for controlling the healthcare dollar spend. More of the healthcare dollar needs to be assigned to primary care to invest in the needed staff, technology, and infrastructure necessary to achieve the better health outcomes for our community. We need to see a reduction in emergency room visits and provide better access to primary care. We need to see fewer hospitalizations. Ideally, we need to see a repurposing of the many standalone emergency rooms in our area.
Very good.
Wow, the one important thing, I think there's many for sure. And I think what 2021 helped us realize, and then we roll into 2022 much stronger, I hope, is that we can't do this as individual organizations. We must be a collective to make this work and to solve problems. We use our critical thinking skills and thought partnership, and we need to keep inclusion and equity and access as our top priority, because that is going to continue, unfortunately, to be an issue and a problem, and we're not going to solve that unless we do it as a collective, and we know this. So I think in 2022, we know that we're going to have to lean into being nimble and flexible, expect the unexpected, that's our normal, and that we've got to find many different ways to make workers feel valued, help employers figure out what retention looks like in the new day. I think it's about the collective, it's about thought partnership, and keeping DEAI as a huge priority in everything that we do in 2022.
Great.
They want us to go see them, and that means that we have to get from behind our desk. We have to stop being comfortable. We have to not feel that we're better than the community because of our titles. This is hard work. This is human work. And after 5 o'clock, most of us are looked at as human. After 5 o'clock, most of us are called by our first name, no matter where we are. And we have to recognize that when we go into the community, they don't care about our titles. We understand them, but we have to come in as a human. We have to gain that trust with these communities that we are meant to serve. We have to get out of the mindset of we're dropping off care packages like we're at war somewhere, and it comes out of a helicopter and it just lands and says, hey, make this last for the next couple of years. Thank you guys so much. We care about you. They need to see who those people are doing this work, but they need to see you as a human doing this work, being there with them, grinding with them. Equity, access, equality, diversity, those are all things that cannot go away because 2021 was done and 2022 or 2020 exposed that it even happened in the first place. We have to take this into everything that we do. Think about your mission, your visions, your person. This is work that has to be done all the time, every day, making sure that when we look at another human being, they feel like a human being. We have to stop making people feel like they're clients and feel like they're customers. This is our community. Pierce County is home for every last one of us, and there's no need for anyone to ever leave Pierce County to live in Pierce County, and we got to do better at making ways for them to live and be a part of this community because there's so much talent, so much love. It's just beautiful, and that's why we're all still here. So 2022 is high expectation, and I expect high from every last person listening out here right now. That is the challenge of high expectation. What are we going to do to be better so we're not having the same conversation in 2023?
So good call to action tomorrow. Thank you for that. Michael.
The realtor community is optimistic about 2022. Demand's going to continue to be the driver. It'll be another year of increased home prices. We are expecting higher interest rates, but they'll still be historically low. We doubt we're even going to see 4%, 3.9, 3.8, based on the people we're talking to. You couple the price appreciation and the higher rates, and some additional people are going to be priced out based on affordability if jobs don't keep up, job and wages, right? Pierce County is well positioned. We're starting out the year with a median price of $515. That is 19.5% above the year before, ending in 12/31/20. But the Pierce price is still 31% lower than King's, right? They're at $749. So I think that positions us well for continued migration into, and the sales will continue to grow. As people look ahead, there's a lot of rumors as they look ahead to 2022. Don't compare this housing boom to the last. There isn't a comparison. Prior to the Great Recession, we had nearly 8,000 homes for sale in Pierce County in August of 2007. Last year, we had an average of 760. So there's just no comparison. And don't plan on a foreclosure tsunami. The forbearance program really did its job. There's a lot of rumors about all these foreclosures that are looming, but most have cured and found a workout. And those that haven't are going to sell because they have tremendous equity with all the price appreciation we've experienced over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Wow. How do you follow up any of that, man? I would really just echo some of what everybody's mentioned here, and that, you know, in the new year, especially as someone that's coming from, you know, a customer-facing retail business with having a coffee shop, that, you know, especially in coffee, especially in retail, I think prior to the pandemic, it was very easy to get comfortable and kind of rest on your laurels. But I think in 2022, as we rage on into this new normal of society, it's all about human interaction and how we relate to one another and being honest and transparent, like Tamar had mentioned. I think that is one of the most critical attributes for any customer-facing brand that is in Pierce County, especially knowing this community as well as I feel like you know it, is that, you know, the more that we can relate to people on a more human level and not necessarily just on a brand and customer level, the longer we'll be able to forge those real relationships that mean something to have businesses grow going forward. So I see a lot of opportunity with just that community building. That's what kind of we're going into 2022 with, is how do we strengthen that community to help us grow as a company and be able to relate to the new workforce and younger kids that are coming in looking for work. Is just, how can we do that? How can we be more human? How can we be more honest, more transparent, more real with one another about the expectations? And so that's kind of where we're looking. And like I said, we're taking that and we're trying to drive this thing as forward as we can in 2022, because there's, for retail, still some great opportunity for expansion and growth in all that we're doing.
Thank you, AJ. First of all, I want to mention that the Northwest Seaport Alliance aspires to be that gateway in all of North America where our customers find it easiest to do business with. So we've had our hands full this past year. And as we look to 2022, we know that the supply chain issues are not going to just go away easily. We've got our hands full as we enter the new year. Some things that we plan to focus on: first of all, continue to invest in our infrastructure assets. They're critical for the success of our gateway. And so building off of the opening of Terminal 5, we plan to continue to develop Phase 2 of Terminal 5. And we've also already shifted our focus back to Tacoma, where we have some unique opportunities to expand our terminal capabilities in partnership with our existing terminal operators in Tacoma. So more to come on that, and stay tuned. Number two, we need to double down our efforts on our operational initiatives. Some of what you heard us speak about in 2021, we really need to put even a stronger focus on those operational initiatives. And we'll do that through that task force. And I believe that as we create some wins and make it easier for our customers to perform their business here, we will recover more swiftly than maybe the other gateways, which will create some opportunities for some new service offerings back to our gateway and building back even more cargo and jobs that come with it. We also need to focus on protecting and enhancing our industrial properties in and around the gateways of Tacoma and Seattle. That's critical for us. Industrial land is in short supply, and there's a lot of pressure on those industrial lands to convert them in certain areas to other than an industrial use. One of the strengths of our gateway, and especially in the South Harbor and Tacoma, we have undeveloped industrial lands where we can put those properties back to use and increase the cargo flow through our gateway. The last thing I'll touch on is the environmental aspects of our business. We need to continue to focus on expanding our business and the jobs that come with it in an environmentally sustainable manner. And just this last year, our environmental team updated the Port's Clean Air Strategy, and that's in partnership with the Port of Tacoma, Port of Seattle, and the Port of Vancouver, BC. And through that, we have some great opportunities to lean into greening our gateway. Things like installing shore power at our terminals so the vessels, when they call at our berths, can plug into electric power rather than burn diesel fuel. And in partnership with our terminal operators and our drayage truck community, looking to greener, more efficient, and even looking at new technologies with electricity to apply to our gateway. Those are unique and important opportunities, not just for us as the Seaport Alliance, but also for the community we serve. So with that, I'll turn it over to Don.
Yeah, considering that this pent-up demand and cargo congestion is certainly going to be with us through most, if not all, of 2022. It's going to be important that we continue to be innovative in finding solutions that can help improve upon the cargo velocity of it as it moves through our gateway. One of the initiatives that I think is going to help in that regard in 2022 is the work we're doing with our port community system, really enhancing that tool such that it provides shipment status, cargo visibility. That will benefit all the stakeholders. So more to come on that, but we are really doubling down our efforts to ensure that we have a product that all stakeholders find value with.
Thank you, Don. So you've heard both John and Don refer to doubling down on the operational initiatives, and that is certainly getting a lot of attention, and we're putting definite focus on that, working very closely with our marine terminal operators on a couple of key initiatives that we feel they will be able to help themselves and therefore help the velocity of the cargo flow. And one of those is that we know that the terminals realize this cargo volume is going to be with us for several months down the road. They need to now find better ways to handle that cargo. Therefore, there's some strong initiatives moving forward on their part to densify their terminals in a better way, in a bigger way, be able to handle more cargo. We're seeing major investments at the terminal level on more and larger cargo handling equipment. One of the terminals is now also ordering 2 more big ship-to-shore cranes for their terminal. Things like that that will help those terminals be able to handle that cargo and process it through their terminal quicker. That's a big deal, and it's certainly an expensive proposition for them, but one that, again, they realize they need to do. The other one that we're looking forward to with our task force moving forward in 2022 is one that we've looked at in the past, but we feel we're much closer to realization of it. And that is finding a way to realize, do the terminals need to be open more hours? Don talked about the port community system, and part of that process is to make sure that the truckers are using all of the appointments that are available at the terminals to, again, keep moving that cargo out of the terminals as timely as possible. And when that is nearing maximization, do we need more hours from the terminals? And it's not just as simple as having the terminals be open more hours. There's a downstream implication as well. The warehouses have to be open. That cargo needs someplace to go. We're trying to work with the community on that and get ourselves inside of how can we influence that situation. The trucking community, that would mean they also either need to perhaps begin at 3 o'clock in the morning on an earlier shift or work later and well beyond midnight at night and have kind of dual shifts. So that's why we're taking the opportunity to bring those stakeholders into this decision-making process and make sure that we get buy-in and it will be successful when and if implemented. So I think we have some good things moving forward, and we certainly do on other aspects as well. And I'll let Tong Zhu talk about that. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Tom. I think on the commercial side, in addition to what's being covered here, I would say that we continue to see increased competition for our exporters here from the region. So we are working hand in hand with our ops team on a number of initiatives that Tom mentioned, because we wanted to work with our US exporters, especially Washington-based exporters, to ensure that their products remain competitive and get out to the world, the market in Asia, in Europe, in other parts of the world. We also continue to see an expansion of manufacturing and sourcing activities changed, and are constantly looking for opportunities to position our gateway in a favorable fashion, so that we can take advantage of those changing shipping patterns, I guess. The third one is growth in e-commerce and transload. We continue to see growth and sustained demand in regional warehouse space and distribution centers and transloading facilities. So we have teamed up with a number of developers and real estate brokers to ensure that we benefit from these potential growth areas.
Well, a new year brings new opportunities and new possibilities. And after hearing from each one of you and the industries you represent, I'm even more excited for not only what this year brings, but the opportunity to collaborate and be a community together and make some great stuff happen. Thank you all again so much for being here and taking the time and wrapping up this 2022 Horizons Economic Breakfast. Thank you to our panelists. Your work and dedication are truly great assets to our business community. Also note, we will be emailing you the URL link and the password to allow you to access the 2022 PCI report via the Chamber website. Thank you again to our MC, my incoming board chair, Eli Taylor. And thank you again to all of our speakers. Supporting sponsors include Key Bank, Columbia Bank, Multicare, and Tote Maritime. Corporate sponsors are Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, All City Fence Co., Madcap Marketing, Pierce County, Sound Credit Union, Techmaster Computer Services, Verizon, and Waste Connections. And our studio and decor sponsor, Tin Can Alley, PJ Hummel. Media sponsors, Premier Media, Showcase Media, and our event sponsors, Bellarmine Prep, Greater Tacoma Convention Center, and Participant First 401k by Extra. The growth of the South Sound is shown through this talent, skills, and leadership that come from all of those who live here and their successes. This year's businesses and their leaders have shown remarkable resiliency. We look forward to navigating 2022 with you. Thank you for your time this morning, and have a great day.